When I was in the 8th grade, I took just a regular trip to the dentist. Little did I know it would turn into the day that I actually almost died. In the morning, I went to go to the dentist to get a filling, and when they started giving me Novocaine, it wasn't kicking in, so they kept giving me more and more and more shots of it. It ended up being a total of 13 shots. When they were done with the work and I started to leave, the second the Novocaine started wearing off, I started feeling like really, really bad chest pains and just did not feel good at all. When I got back into my car, I felt like I was choking and like my whole entire throat was just aching and I couldn't breathe. And my mom actually said I sounded like Kermit the Frog. We started to go home and I just started feeling more and more sick, like I was suffocating and I could not get my air in right. And once I got home, my mom told me to just go lay down, figure it out, and she started calling the dentist, she started calling the doctor, and they all thought I was having some sort of reaction to either a food I ate or something else, but they didn't think it was Novocaine first off. I took some Benadryl, but it just did not help, and I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I got later into the day, and I was trying to talk, and I had to gasp in and talk and gasp in and talk, and I sounded like Stevie from Malcolm in the Middle. I was trying to talk, and I was like, Mom, I have to go to the hospital. I don't feel good. I need to go. She finally was just like, fine, whatever, even though after she yelled at me over and over again. My mom's this little tiny lady, but she yells like a trucker. She is scary. So we finally got to the hospital, and it's like 11 p.m. at night. We went over to St. John's in Maplewood. Once we got into the hospital, we checked all in and got sent over to the lab to sit down and wait for the nurse to come in. When we're sitting there, there was a couple unusual people that ended up coming in. The first guy that came in just looked kind of sketchy, like he just came right off the street. He came limping in, holding his arm. They pulled up his sleeve, and he was like, I got shot! And they immediately grabbed him and shoved him into the other room to get him taken care of. The second guy that came in holding his crotch, and there was blood like all over his crotch, and I was kind of nervous to see what was going on. But he finally let go, and he put his hand up, and his thumb was dangling off his hand. It was barely connected. So he got taken off, and they brought him into the check-in room to get him all checked in. Now the third guy that came in, he walked in, cupping his hand over his eye, and he was a spiffy guy in his business suit. He seemed a little intoxicated. He came stumbling up to the desk and was slurring his speech and didn't really know what he was saying. So he had his hand cupped over his eye, and the nurse asked him what was wrong, and he tipped his hand forward, and his eyeball was laying in his hand, but it was still connected, but it was completely out of his eye. So they panicked and brought him into the other room. Then my nurse finally came out and called me in, and I looked at her, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And she looked just like Malibu Barbie. She had the blonde hair and the super thick makeup. She was completely orange with this fake tan. She had on these spiffy little shoes, too, that she did not look like a nurse. And she brought me into the other room to start doing my analysis and everything. And the first thing she says to me is, hi, I'm new, which is not what you want to hear when you think you're dying. So once I got brought into the other room, they did a little bit of analysis, and they figured out that I was actually having an allergic reaction, and I was in anaphylactic shock at this point. So they immediately started giving me epinephrine, so they had to do it through an IV. So the nurse wanted to give me my IV, and she wanted to start by putting it in my wrist, but she couldn't find my vein. So she moved up my arm to put it on my elbow. Now when she put it in my elbow, she didn't have the stopper on the end of the tube, so she shoved it in the vein, and blood just started squirting everywhere. Like it was all over me, all over my robe, all over the floor. It was squirting me in the face. It was just everywhere. And instead of my nurse stopping it, she completely panicked and ran out of the room, just disappeared completely. Like nobody knew where she went. So we had to flake the doctor. He came in, stopped the tube, and asked what was going on. And he actually gave me my epinephrine, got me going. And 20 minutes passed, and I was fine, just like that. Like I was totally good, could breathe, was bouncing around. I was fine. The doctor that had come in to give me my epinephrine did a little bit of analysis on my throat, and he actually told me that if I would have came in 2 hours after this, that my throat would have completely closed up and I would have suffocated and died. So, told my mom this, we went home. I got home at about 3 a.m. And even though this day happened, still to this day, my mom won't bring me to the hospital even if I'm dying.